Hey, once again, welcome to United Opposition with Scott and
Marshall.
That's right. We are here. We're coming up on the week of 4th of July, and today we're talking about America and Americans. Here we go. Well, here we are coming to you live from California in the United States. Coming up today is July 1st. Been driving by all the fireworks places. They're all opening up and selling fireworks, and it always surprises me every year as I'm driving by. Gets near the last week of June. Also, I'm like, oh, there's fireworks stands. That's right. That's coming up really soon. And then it's there for 4 days and then gone. It all gets put away. But hey, a lot of nonprofits make a lot of money. Do you guys have fireworks in your county? Do you guys have fireworks stands in your county?
Well, I'm in Santa Barbara County, and yes, I don't know about San Luis Obispo County, though. I think they may be outlawed all over, but
Santa Maria is in Santa Barbara County?
It is, but I'm not in Santa Maria, but yeah.
Yeah. I'm not gonna dox you. I'm not gonna give away your exact location. Okay, coordinates are longitude, latitude,
right.
Call me airstrike.
we'll let Trump do that.
We'll drop a mop. Yeah. Massive women's penetrator.
There you go. If you're gonna go, might as well go out in style.
Oh my gosh, it took everything in my power not to comment. My wife and I a couple weekends ago, we were at a restaurant down in San Diego, in the San Diego area, and there was a guy talking to his family about the bombs that had just dropped, and he was like, yeah, these are the largest bombs ever. The Moabs, and they drop and they penetrate and they go, and I'm like, it's not the Moab is not a penetration. It's an aerial burst. That's what because he's calling it the mother of all bombs. It's not the mother of all bombs. It's massive ordnance aerial burst. The aerial burst means it does. And I was like, I wanted to stand up and turn around and correct him. I'm like, it's not my business. Just let him keep giving out wrong information to his family, whatever.
Yeah. It doesn't always pay.
Doesn't always pay. I'm like, okay, whatever. You can just go ahead and tell all that. But
I confine my battles to the ones on the internet. That's where it makes a real difference.
That's where it makes a difference. You know that what's that meme shows the husband sitting on the computer and typing. He says, "Hold on, I'll come to bed in a minute. There's somebody wrong on the internet."
Yep. There you go.
So we're trying not to. What we're trying to do with this show is to not make that happen on this show. This show is about being face to face with a friend, face to face with someone that we know, someone that we trust, and someone that we know has good intentions. I believe that Marshall has good intentions, and I believe that Marshall is a good person, and we differ in what we believe is the right way for the country to be ran, but I don't think we doubt each other's intentions for the betterment of people. We just have different ways. We believe that there are different ways of getting there. And as long as we maintain that, I feel that's the heart of our show, that as long as we maintain that, and I think that extends in some way to trusting each other, that if you see something in something that maybe I can believe the intentions of that, if you believe in the intentions of that. You know what I mean? Like if there's something else, like, well, maybe I want it to be a conversation between people who know each other, trust each other, actually care about each other, and believe in the goodness of the other person. And if we can do that here on this show, I think that we owe society a reasonable amount of applying that to people we don't know. I think that always leads to better outcomes if we apply that, if we assume that the other person is not evil, stupid, or wants to, do bad things. Maybe they just have a different perspective, and maybe they just don't have the same information we have. But we'll never know unless we talk, right?
Right. All right. So what did you want to talk about today, Scott?
Well, there's a lot going on.
This topic.
I actually say, hey, can we talk about citizenship? Because because a lot of that's coming up right now, and quite honestly, I'm interested in talking about why there's a second that I never knew. Honestly, I never paid attention to it, And I'm willing to think that either I was right before or I was wrong before about what the 14th Amendment actually says. And discovering that there is a second second condition beyond just being born here. And it's that second condition that says, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. What does that mean? What did it mean when it was written? How have we interpreted it before? And has it been misinterpreted, or is it being misinterpreted now? I never really paid attention to that. I just assumed if you're born in the United States, then you're a United States citizen, but I never knew about that second caveat. Not even a caveat. It's a second requirement. It's an and. It's not like a second. It's born and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And realizing that, so maybe just being born here isn't enough. Should it be enough? Or does it make sense to have that? And if we're going to say just being born here is enough, is that actually constitutional? Or is it actually constitutional that the second part of that takes place? Because doing some research and looking it up, do you know that there's not a single, I know we like to compare ourselves to Europe. Do you know there's not a single European nation that gives you birthright citizenship? Were you aware of that, Marshall?
No, I was not.
There's not a single European nation that gives you birthright citizenship. Okay. Just because you're born there, you're not a citizen.
What makes you a citizen of, let's say, the UK?
When you're, at least for one of them that I know of, part of the process in Europe, I haven't been able to research all of them. I did research the countries that have birthright citizenship, and there's not a single country in Europe that has that. But knowing a person who was born to American parents in a European country, they had to wait until they were 18. They lived there their whole life. They had to wait until they were 18 to stand before a judge and declare that they wished to have secondary citizenship from that European country. And so they weren't, even though they were born there, they were born to American parents, and they had to apply for their citizenship once they became an 18-year-old adult.
Yeah, but then that naturalization process is pretty simple. You just go take an oath or what have you.
Well, I mean, there is a
some countries are very tight about it. Others are very loose.
And there was a vetting process. There was a, why and a stand before a judge and make a declaration to do that. Sure. So it's not an unreasonable thing. I'm curious how we got to it. Well, I'm curious, what does that second condition mean? And subject to the jurisdiction thereof.
I've always understood it to mean if it's a U.S. territory or a place that is under U.S. control, such as a naval vessel. In fact, this is a real sticking point when dealing with terrorists in the war on terror. If you go out to Somalia and you hunt Somali pirates, or you go to Afghanistan or Syria or Iraq or wherever, and you arrest you capture terrorists, if you bring them on board a U.S. warship, the moment they set foot on that warship, they are now entitled to the protections of the Constitution, which is why things like extraordinary rendition were so controversial during the war on terror, because it was acknowledged that we could do pretty much whatever we want without oversight, as long as we don't bring these persons onto any kind of a U.S. jurisdiction. Once they enter a U.S. jurisdiction, whether it's an embassy, a warship, a military base, a territory, or of course the states, suddenly they get all these rights. And so we made a conscious effort not to bring these people into those jurisdictions. And we were sending people to places across the Middle East, even Poland, I know, infamously, and other parts of the world, to question and interrogate them without, getting our hands dirty, so to speak. So that's always been my understanding of this. And beware the Constitutional Convention, which I think is someone's going to bring that up. I haven't heard anyone comment on that or mention it, but at some point, someone's going to use the words Constitutional Convention. And when that happens, the whole Constitution goes up for grabs. It's not just the one thing that they call it for.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, this is something for the court to rule on. and the court will have its say regardless. And that's how it's going to be. But I think traditionally and historically, since the end of the American Civil War, this has always been interpreted to me: a person born in any of those places I described is automatically imbued with citizenship. That's why it's called birthright citizenship.
But it doesn't say birthright citizenship in the Constitution.
No, but that's how it's been interpreted. That's the understanding of it.
But
That's how it works.
it's been recently interpreted that way.
Well,
After-
no, I mean, if you want to go all the way back to the Civil War, I suppose if that's recent for you, fine.
No. I'm saying there were two. I was reading up on this. There were two things that went to the Supreme Court. One of them was as recent as World War II. With the one was recent as the early 1900s, and they specifically, I think the I'm trying to remember here.
Okay, so a century ago. Well, whatever. Why not? Why not be generous with citizenship?
Because what I'm getting is, I think it's important that citizenship include an intent to be part of that country. I think citizenship should include the way that this person that I know that was born in Europe, it was you get to be part of this country when you choose as an adult, when you choose to be part of this country. You make a choice to be part of it. You're not automatically, and I think what carries with that, if you're an adult coming into the country and you're going in the proper way and you're coming through the process and you're going, I believe there's a part where you swear an oath, an allegiance to the country as part of the process. And I think that's an important takeaway for me as a person who is descendants of people who came in from Mexico as great grandparents immigrated from Mexico. They came in. My grandmother's family, my dad's side, my dad's full Mexican. Both of his parents were Mexican. They were migrant farm workers. Both of them had parents that came in from Mexico, either parents or grandparents that came in, immigrated from Mexico, became U.S. citizens, and they were born here, but they were also born to people who were intending to be here. And again, my dad was born here. So from my dad's side going back is Mexican heritage. And my grandmother's side, she was one of 16 kids. She was somewhere in the middle of 16 kids that lived in the Tulare, Visalia area. And like the Morales family in Visalia, like half of Visalia is probably related to me in some way, because it's such a huge family that was there. We would do family reunions there in Visalia at Mooney Park there in Visalia. They'd take over the whole park for family reunions when I was a kid, the whole Morales family there. And there'd be dozens, and I mean, it seemed like it was hundreds of people, but it's probably just dozens, but huge family reunions. And the funny thing is, through all of that, back then as a kid, visiting those families, different family members in Visalia, I don't ever remember seeing Mexican flags. They came here to be Americans. They came from Mexico to be Americans. They embraced the American flag. They embraced the culture. There wasn't we are Mexicans living in this land. It was, we came here to be Americans, and they wanted to be Americans, and they were proud to be Americans. And there wasn't this, we're proud to be Mexicans living in America. It was, we came here to be Americans. And I think that's what we're missing in this day and age of immigration, is people coming here to be here, people coming here and pledging an allegiance to this country, because that's what makes it better. Them bringing what they have from their countries, coming in and saying, now I'm going to be in America. I'm going to bring my experience. I'm going to bring my knowledge. I'm going to bring my skills, and I'm going to be an American. I believe that is something that makes this country better. I believe that's something that is what immigration should be. Let's come together and be Americans. Let's not hyphenate our Americanism. I'm a Mexican American, I'm an African American, I'm a European American. It's, let's come together and be Americans. And I think that we've lost that, and that I think that has been, you can see it happening in Europe, that is a specific strategy that is happening in Europe, specifically with Muslims immigrating into Europe. It is, and it's not every Muslim. Like I said, like it's been said, maybe what 10% of all Muslims are actually extremists. Has that been kind of, most people who believe in Islam, follow Islam, they're not extremists. They don't believe in they're not hardline extremists who want to destroy. It's only maybe about 10%, but that 10% still represents about 150 million people around the world that want Islam to take over. And their strategy right now, their declaration is in Europe right now, their strategy right now, is particularly in England, is that by 2060, they will outnumber Europeans in England and they will vote in Sharia law. That's their intent to take over the country. They're using immigration to take over the country. They're coming in and not becoming Europeans. They're coming in and not becoming British citizens. They're not intending to become Brits. They're intending to stay Islamist and to take over the country and bring in Sharia law. That is the new way that they are intending to invade and conquer the nation. And I think that's a dangerous thing to allow. I think that is one of the things that is why borders and proper vetting of people coming into the country is important, is to say, are you coming to be an American? Are you coming to be part of this country and to build up this country? If not, then I think that through that vetting process, we should say no, if that's not what's happening. Of course, people can lie, people can swear an oath and break it. I understand that. But I think it's important to make that part of the process. Otherwise, it's an invasion. If there's an intent to bring an outside culture into this country and maintain that outside culture in a way so that they can breed that outside culture in a way to take over so that they can turn this culture into their culture, I think that's an invasion. I think there's an existential threat for the country in that, and we can see that happening in Europe. And maybe the policies in Europe of not letting, maybe that is a problem. Maybe that's causing it. I don't know, but my thing is, I come from a family of immigrants who came here to be Americans, and I believe that's how immigration should work. You come here to make this country and your life better.
So basically, you're afraid of people coming here and treating us the same way that our ancestors treated the Native Americans.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, and you are also afraid of people coming in here the same way Americans came into the American Southwest, invaded what we now call Texas, California, which for a very long time, for hundreds of years, was indigenous land, then part of Spain, then part of Mexico. You're afraid of that.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So even though, the border kind of crossed all of these millions of people who were here pre-existing, and we made it America, we're just terrified this is going to happen in reverse.
Yep.
That seems a little rich to me, but okay.
That's what history
I'll say this. America is based on freedom, and freedom means letting others do things you don't like. It is not my business if somebody has a Mexican flag on their car or in their garage or at their family reunion. It is not my business if they paint a big old Our Lady of Guadalupe on the hood of their lowrider or whatever, or what they eat, or what language they speak, or any of that. None of that matters to me. And it doesn't matter if they're Muslim or Christian. Christians go around the world and proselytize, and Muslims are going to do the same thing. I just don't care. The only thing I care about is that my neighbors are good people, that they're decent persons. And as long as they accept, live and let live, as long as, they respect my home and I respect their home, and they have their traditions and stuff, And there's a certain amount of give or take. Sometimes my neighbors, will have a party that's a little loud, and they'll have the mariachis come out and play, and I can't understand the lyrics because they're going so fast. But you know what? That's giving because they're my neighbors.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, though, we're all citizens of the planet Earth, right? We're all humans, and we have to kind of coexist here. I don't care where you come from or what your background is. I only care how you treat me. And
Mhm.
aside from that, as long as you can have whatever tradition or practices you like to have.
Mhm.
And I'm very happy to consider you an American. This whole thing that you have to raise your hand and pledge allegiance or whatever. Okay, fine, whatever. If we really need to have that big deal, but I honestly don't care. I just
Mhm.
care that my neighbors are good people.
So what do you, and again, comparing Europe and United States, what do you think about the immigration that's happening in Europe as a targeted attack to take over a nation?
I don't know that there's any evidence of that, and whatever. At the end of the day,
Is that
uh,
okay? Should that be allowed?
people deserve the right to self-determination. If they want to have their community and they want to live according to their rules, and they have their household, they want to live according to their household rules. As long as that is consistent with the law of the land,
The-
again, self-determination. If people
okay.
want to live according to Sharia law and they establish a nation or a state or a community based around that, then that's their choice.
I,
If I'm free to come or
I,
go,
I
then
cannot believe you. I can't. I don't know. I don't know that you've. I mean, I hate to bring in the Goldwyn's law or whatever like that, but if the nation decides to be fascist and they all agree to be fascist, you're not okay with that.
you're right. And so
You're,
I would like to
so it's
reserve
not.
to myself the ability to leave, But fascism in particular is the one ideology that I see as an exception to all others,
Well,
because
is
fascism is
an Islamic
inherently
state is fascism.
no, it's
Islamic
not
state,
fascism. There is no marriage of
democracy.
the political state and the corporate state. It's different. Okay. You can have religious authoritarianism, and I have no interest in religious authoritarianism.
But
But
isn't
there
that
may be a
more
community of
dangerous?
people who are interested in that.
Isn't religious authoritarianism as dangerous or more dangerous than fascism?
It's a different animal. Fascism
It is-
condemns
I know
people
it's
for
different, but is it as dangerous or more dangerous than fascism?
I think both can be
Because
quite dangerous.
you
So
combine religion with authoritarianism. Fascism didn't do that. That
well, no,
brings out
no,
a higher level of radicalism because it's part of their faith.
fascism replaces the dominant religion with the religion to the state or the government, whatever.
Right, but Islamic authoritarianism combines those. It's not one or the other or replacement. It combines.
I'm not saying it's a good thing, but what I am saying is if there's a group of people out there that want to live according to those rules and principles, and they're not going to disturb my peace and they're going to have their peace, that's fine. It's not my business.
But it is your business if you're living in this. So you're okay with running out, leaving, being driven out of a country you grew up in, being driven out of the country that you felt that this is where the country that you wanted to live in, being driven out of there by people who are coming in and changing it. You're okay with that?
So, like the Israelis have done to the Palestinians.
No,
Yeah, the settlements. Yeah.
no,
Okay.
that's
So
we talked about
yes,
that before.
yes,
That's
yes.
not what's happened.
That's what's happened the past 80 years. Uh, you know, but
Completely ignoring that
y-
Israel
y-
did give
y-
it to them.
so here's the deal,
Out of
right?
there, did walk
Either
away.
either
Red herring.
colonialism
That's a
is
red
a
herring.
great either colonialism is a great evil, or colonialism is just how the game is played. You
Mm-hmm.
can't have your cake and eat it too. So you can take the side of colonialism, or you can take the side of not colonialism, but it's up to you. Which do you are you cool with colonialism or not?
It's the definition of what has happened in all of human history. And
Okay, so you're cool with it. It's like a law of nature. You're cool with it.
I believe that technology has eliminated the need for it. So right now we don't need colonialism, and so there's
Are
no,
you cool with colonialism or
not
not?
not anymore.
Not
I,
anymore. You were as long as it worked for you, but when it works against you, now suddenly you have an objection to it. That's convenient.
no. In history, it was the only way. That's how every nation existed.
Really?
That's how it
Really?
established. Yes,
The only way.
that was the only way through history. Technology has given us a way out of it, and it's no longer necessary.
So civilizations have existed in their own little regions for thousands of years, and they've had these
And
colonial
every
conflicts, but the
and every
civilizations have
region
persisted in
and
spite
every
of it.
region from Asia to Middle East to Europe, every region has had some civilization become so great and colonize everything around it until it failed by some other nation that was colonizing everything around it until it failed by another nation. That every region,
Okay,
every
so this is just the natural order of things. So
yes,
folks
and,
coming here
and that was
and colonizing
technology,
America
and
from the
technology
south.
has changed that.
Hey, I see.
Let's change that. We no longer need that type of colonialism to thrive as a nation.
Hey, buddy, the shoe's on the other foot. Wear it.
What do you mean?
We're being colonized now, aren't we? How do you
Yeah,
like it?
there's no reason to, because technology has eliminated the need for colonization.
Because what, we can defend our border just like, the iron sword,
No, no.
defeated the
I'm saying,
bronze sword,
I'm saying we
and
no
gave
longer,
way to the Iron Age and
we
allowed
no longer need
empires to
all of
switch.
those times. All of those times, you needed to conquer that nation, that cause, civilization, whatever, needed to conquer in order to control resources, needed to conquer in order to have what that nation had. In order to get there wasn't the technology to get what they needed any other way. Nowadays, we don't have to I don't have to conquer an area. I don't have to be part of a country that conquers a nation when I can just travel there. I can travel to any part of the world. Anybody right now can travel to any part of the world, and they don't need to be a citizen of what the technology has connected all of us. Any of us right now can walk into a little tube, sit down for 12 to 18 hours, and be anywhere on the globe. We don't need to conquer that place. We can just get there. We don't need it to be under the control of our nation. All we got to do is be trading with it or visit it. And there's no longer a need to colonize. We can be our own countries and still serve each other without conquering each other. The technology has eliminated the need for colonization. So me saying nobody
So
needs to
let me hang on.
is not
I've got to call
inconsistent.
Netanyahu here real quick. I've got good news for him.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to call him up and say, "Hey, buddy,
We can have a
you can ride in a little metal tube to Gaza. You don't need to do genocide anymore. That's nice."
Marshall, we can
Yeah.
have an honest conversation, or you can make fun of me. What would you like to do?
Well, the problem is this is an
Have I made fun of
absurd.
you?
Your argument's
Have I
absurd.
made fun of you?
No, but you're welcome to. But
No.
if I make an absurd argument like this is silly.
Then why don't you explain instead of being insultive?
Because I have to have a chance to speak,
Okay.
without being cut off. So the fact that you can move from place to place doesn't make a whole lot of difference. At the end of the day, people are going to move from one place to another for all kinds of reasons. And it may be resources, it may be climate, it may be opportunity, it may be economics. It's often economics, even in the ancient world, economics. And this is natural for people to do this. And of course, people don't just cross borders, but borders also cross people. That's what happened at the end of the Mexican American War, right? This place where we are, California, used to be Mexico. That's why it's called California. It used to be part of the Spanish Empire, and the border crossed the people back to the south, and suddenly we became America. And of course, we greatly persecuted the people who were here, who were Mexican citizens at the time, by the way, including the wealthy ones. We tried to steal their land grants, but what have you. But people still, even today, there's going to be competition for resources, and perhaps even more so now. The fact that you can travel from one place to another doesn't mean that people do not covet the resources or the economics or the climate or the opportunity that is in one place or another. Obviously, people talk about how great America is and how everybody wants to come here to this country because they want our freedom and our opportunity. That is a resource that you can't enjoy just by flying someplace else, because at the end of your flight, you got to come back home, and you don't have that there. So people want to come here and they want to settle here because they want to enjoy that resource that they don't get elsewhere. That's American exceptionalism, something I think you believe in. And so that's why, no, your argument doesn't quite hold water, in my opinion.
Well, I'm only making the argument that it's no longer necessary to conquer a place in order to get their resources. That was through history, you had to conquer a place to get their resources. You no longer have to do that.
Well,
technology has given us the ability to not need colonization. But the whole point of what I'm trying to say is I am not intellectually inconsistent to say we should not put up with colonization now.
So why are we the ones with hundreds of military bases around the world? Like, set up in other countries. Why are we doing that then?
Because they want
that not colonization.
They want us to defend them. They like security.
They want to from whom?
Whoever their enemies are.
Right. Which are oftentimes the very people from whom we're taking the resources. So yeah, there's a reason why it's referred to as the American Empire. We are the British Empire of the 20th, 21st century. It's not going to last. China's out there doing their own version of it now.
Mm-hmm.
They're up and coming, but it's just the way of things.
Well, we fly the American flag here, and all the other countries fly their flags there. They don't fly the American flag over their capitals. That's the difference. They're not colonized.
Okay. But you see, the difference too is America is a free country, right? A lot of these other countries aren't free by the American standards. But we're free. And part of our freedom means we can burn our flag if we want to.
There's nothing to do with the flag.
Offensive speech is protected speech. Right, and that includes flying a flag that other people don't like, because freedom means doing
hold on.
You don't like.
You're fighting an argument I didn't make. You're fighting an argument. I'm saying
that's fine.
What I said about the American flag had nothing to do with people burning it or waving the Mexican flag. What I was saying is United States does not conquer countries and make them colonies. Those countries are still their countries.
Ooh,
that's what I'm saying. Those countries those countries still have their laws. Those countries are still
we definitely conquer countries and make them. It's called the CIA. I mean, look at what we've done most recently in Iraq, and look what we attempted to do in Afghanistan, but it failed spectacularly. Of course, now we're in the process of trying to do it in Syria.
If we went in to Afghanistan and said you are now a state of the United States and we establish then it wouldn't have failed. That's not what we did. If we'd gone into Baghdad and said you are now a state of the United States, the American flag flies there, that's not what we did. We didn't conquer them and make them part of our territory.
Oh boy, that's got to be a surprise to all those Republican Guard soldiers we captured. Scott, brother,
we did not conquer them.
Definitely
make them
conquered, we sponsored the people who took over.
I mean,
we imposed our foreign policy.
Going back to our immigration topic, if you're born in Afghanistan, you're not an American citizen because it's not a territory of the United States. If you're born in
if your parents are American,
citizen, your
parents are American.
Territories of the United States. We did not colonize them. We did not conquer them. We did not make them our land. That is a fact. You know that's a fact.
But,
that's a fact.
Well, because we failed.
You know that's a fact. We didn't even try to do that. We did not. We did not attempt to make. We did not. Come on. We did not attempt to make them U.S. territories. We did not take them over. We did not try to take them over and take over their government. We did not make them a state. We did not make them a territory. We did not take their land and say, now you are U.S. citizens born here. This is now property of the United States. We didn't do any of that. and you know it.
Have you heard the word hegemony? Are you familiar with the word hegemony?
I've heard it before. Please explain.
Okay.
In 5 seconds.
So
34 minutes.
hegemony is defined by the dictionary as leadership or dominance, especially by one country or social group over others.
Mhm.
And that is exactly what we've done. And that's how empires work. You know, when the British Empire colonized India, they didn't actually occupy it entirely. What they did was they asserted their dominance over it and installed leadership that would cooperate with whatever, English government wanted them to do.
Mhm.
And of course, they extracted the resources and treated it again, as we would call it, a colony.
Mhm.
And we're doing the same thing today. That's what we're doing in all these countries, and that's why we get rebellions. That's why things like ISIS happened.
Mhm.
That's the Taliban. And
before America was there, Taliban had no problem partnering with America when they were fighting Russia.
That's right. But then once we moved in, they turned
right. But you're saying that we created that problem. We didn't. That problem they existed.
Oh, we absolutely created that problem. We funded Al Qaeda originally.
Exactly. But what I'm saying is, when I say a problem, I'm saying they weren't a problem to the United States. They weren't a problem. That they did not fight. They were not enemies of the United States back then.
Until we went into their country, then
we did not create them.
Yeah, and when we were in their country, okay, we were definitely a problem for them, and vice versa. So the thing is, look, you can't be cool with colonialism in some cases and opposed to it in others.
I'm not cool with colonialism in our modern society in any factor.
But you've been cool with it up until 2025, or do we want to go back a few years to be fair?
Go back a century or so. When the beginning of the century, when it was no longer necessary to conquer nations to be able to share resources.
So when your grandparents came in, were they colonizers?
No, they were coming in to be Americans. That's my whole point.
Okay.
They were coming in to be Americans. That's what made America great. They were coming in.
People are going to become Americans if they're here and they birth their children here. Their children who grow in our culture and our society will naturally be Americans. They will speak English. Mm-hmm. They will speak with an American accent. They will acquire tastes for American food.
They are raised by parents who say, eventually you will conquer this nation. We will not conform and we will conquer. They will still attempt to conquer.
Okay. All right. The parents can say whatever they want, but the kids will grow in this country. They will learn in our schools. They will absorb our culture. And we see how that goes.
What's going on? They will vote
assimilate. But the culture also develops and changes and evolves with time. And that's okay too. The culture, American culture, 100 years from now would be alien to you and I today. And that's okay. Just as if you and I were to go back 100 years, I think we'd have a good time. I think we'd find it fun. Go back to the 1920s. Wouldn't you love that? But
I don't think we're alien. I don't think we're as alien to the 20s as you think.
Maybe not, but enough so, I think.
But I think you're right that from now, at this stage, it will be vastly different.
And that's okay. That's okay. We don't need to control 100 years in the future. That time is not for us, Scott. That time is not for us.
Says the climate alarmist.
Well, that's about whether or not humanity has a future at all.
Come on.
Yeah, that's a good one. But the thing is, that's about whether or not humanity has a future at all.
Doesn't matter. We don't need to live right now. What was your word? We don't need to live right now to worry about what happens in 100 years. We don't need to live.
I'm talking about the culture. Okay, but you can't have a culture if there's no, habitable world for us to live on. Earth will be fine. There will still be a climate. It's a question of whether or not it will be habitable for our grandchildren and their children.
Well, as we go into this week, I'm still ready to celebrate America. I'm still ready to celebrate. I'm not buying any fireworks. It's just too expensive, and enough of my neighbors set off fireworks all around us. We just put our chairs out in the front yard and just watch all the explosions happen all around us, and have our hose ready in case anything lands on our house. But yeah, we're still going to celebrate. My kids are coming from 2 different cities from California and coming, and we're going to enjoy. So I'm going to wish you and everybody happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day, whatever you want to call it. And I'm still going to celebrate and believe that United States is still the greatest nation in the world. And I think people want to get here because of that. And I think it'll continue to be great if people who are coming here want to be Americans. I think we can continue to make it great as Americans if people come here wanting to be Americans.
I think if you don't buy fireworks, you don't love America. You can't be American if you don't buy fireworks and make loud explosions. That's the most American thing ever. And here you are saying you're not going to do it. Get out of here with yourself, man.
Come on, let's be sincere. We're not the only country that fires off rockets in the air to celebrate. Most people shoot guns into the air. At least in general, we don't do that. There are people who do that, but that's,
4th of July here, there's a lot of guns that do go off, but
yeah.
neither here nor there.
All right.
I think
in the news.
If we want America to be great, I think it's about the people that come here. And I don't think that there is one or a right or wrong way to do it other than freedom. And that's it.
All right. Well, we've gone 41 minutes. We'll see you guys next week. And who knows what we'll be talking about then, whatever comes in the news. This has been United Opposition with Scott and Marshall, where we're 2 friends talk. And we think that's important. Till next time, God bless you.